You wake up alone, surrounded by sweeping hills of green, sprinkled with sand, dotted with clumps of trees and pools of water. You hear a faint water rushing down a hill, movements of animals nearby. With the glare of sun in your eyes as pearly white clouds sprinkle over the infinite blue sky, you realize you are alone. No direction, no goal, no path, just you alone in a state of nature. Minecraft is a game I'm sure many of you are familiar with it making up many a childhood memory. But have you ever thought deeper about what it means to be thrust into an unknown landscape? A game that gives you no path or story to follow, tells you no goal or rules, but allows you to be in this new universe. What can we learn from this sandbox we're allowed to play in, and the sandcastles we create in it? As technology rapidly progresses, we sometimes need to take a step back and think about how this rapid advancement can be used to reflect humanity and who we are as a species and as individuals. By playing this seemingly simple game, we actually hold a mirror to ourselves and see the reflections of our soul laid out before us in how we act and the worlds we create. The state of nature is a thought experiment, or myth discussed by many philosophers, but in short, it is a way of discussing and exploring the human condition before things such as society was created. The way we play and engage with Minecraft allows us to create and explore this state of nature, and by extension, ourselves. How can we use this progress in technology and the omnipresent rise in video games to tell us what it was like before we were born, before the first computer, and before the first society? Can we use this virtual world made up of cubes navigated by a square man to explore if we are even human? And what being human even means, and what progress looks like, and what we desire, and what should we desire, what is good and what is evil, all complex thoughts that previously we were only able to explore in our own heads, through philosophy and thought experiments. But what if we could take these ideas out of our minds and put them into code, removing all the complex terms and topics philosophers debate over, and create a game where we can truly immerse ourselves in philosophy, in humanity, and most importantly, in the state of nature. It may seem like a silly idea that a children's game of bright colours and simple shapes can be used in such a way. But it's this very simplicity that makes it so genius. Despite all the jokes and juvenile presentation, Minecraft has proven again and again its versatility. Whether that be through massive sprawling projects worked on by teams of people, or from being used as a means to create massive, intricate stories. Minecraft is a game that you never play the same way twice. From the fact that you generate a unique world every time you press that new game button, as each world has a randomized seed attached to it that thrusts you into a new world, completely arbitrary each time. But also the fact that Minecraft gives you infinite freedom to do absolutely whatever you want. Want to build a tower and jump off of it? Go ahead. Want to burn down a forest? Sure, you can. Want to build massive sprawling structures? Why not? There is no goal, no narrative, no purpose, which means you are completely free. Right? You might be thinking that Minecraft isn't unique in this expansive, plotless gameplay. There are many other games, such as The Sims or Rust, that have little to minimal story and allows you to play in pretty much any way you want. This is due to the nature of the game's genre. Minecraft falls into the genre known as sandbox, which differs from other games. Sandbox games enable the players to engage in free, open-ended explorations of virtual worlds, which is important as there's no plot that you need to follow, no narrative guiding your choices, and no set paths. A quick side note, most of what I argue in this video can also be applied to similar games to Minecraft, such as Rust or Terraria, but I'm currently hyperfixated on Minecraft, so that's what we're talking about. Anyways, the reason this lack of narrative is so important is because of the way video games are analysed in current academic fields. To give a brief overview, there are two different fields of thought when it comes to analysing video games: narratologists and ludologists. Now, despite their fancy names, these two positions are pretty easy to define. Narratologists believe that tools used to analyse video games should be the same ones we use to analyse fiction. So we should use the same ideas that we used in English class. This would mean that we're using the same sort of thinking that the teacher uses when she says that Shakespeare made the curtains blue in order to say that Othello was sad. As previously stated, Minecraft has no story. So how can we rely on this story element for analysis when there is no story? It doesn't make much sense to say stuff like the dog's collar is red, so clearly he's a seductress. So obviously using a purely narratologist view here won't help us. The alternate view, ludology, critiques the narratologist's approach, as they don't take into account the uniqueness of video games. Ludologists instead claim that games should be studied through a process of play. Why is this important? Well, video games have previously been used as a way to explore some aspects of philosophy, mostly as a way to simulate moral issues. Sorry for the bad pronunciation, but Skushkel points out in his article that there are games such as Neil Funn's Absurd Trolley Problem that have been specifically designed to simulate thought experiments, such as the trolley problem. He also points out that even if games aren't designed specifically to explore philosophy, they can still be useful in simulating said philosophy and asking moral questions. This can be seen in many games, such as Fallout New Vegas or Mass Effect, which explore morality through narrative structures that facilitate the players making these moral decisions. This is also discussed by Diamond in his article, as he suggests that narrative-based games are suited for philosophical discussion, as you can play the scenarios, making it easier to get your head around them. As in video games, you can actually do things like pull the lever in the trolley problem, or kill an entire civilization in Undertale. And then you get to explore the consequences of these actions through the narrative of the story. Meaning you actually get to experience the moral choice and understand the philosophy from a first-person perspective. However, there is one main problem with simulating these moral choices in video games, and that is, how can these games raise moral questions when there are only 2 or 3 choices? In many of the games discussed, there is a clear evil and bad choice and a moral and good choice. Even if it's not as simple as the good choice or the bad choice, it's rare to have a story in a game that has more than 1 or 2 big choices that drastically change the story. This is because many narrative games have a set path or story they want to tell. Don't get me wrong, there are many great narrative games that have choices that actually have consequences in the story, like Detroit Become Human. But because each outcome of a choice would have to lead down a different path, this path has to be written and programmed, leading to the majority of story-based games having little to no actual meaningful choices. This is what makes Minecraft such an interesting game, as because there is no story, no narrative forcing you to pick choice A or B, you can explore the human condition more deeply. As because the consequences of each action isn't pre-planned to fit into a greater narrative, you get to experience the actual consequences of your actions, not just some programmer's creation. So instead of focusing on the narrative, we can use the viewpoint put forward by the ludologists and focus completely on the gameplay of Minecraft and what this can tell us about the choices we make. As previously discussed, Minecraft is a game that allows you to truly get lost in your choices, with infinite possibilities, infinite exploration, and infinite time. Because of this freedom, created by the lack of narrative, you are truly free to make your own choices. So what can this gameplay tell us about ourselves? What does it mean about humanity when you steal the diamonds from a friend's chest? What about the intricate structures, the twisting towers of cobblestone resembling grand castles, the towers of glowing lava, and the underwhelming roller coasters made from minecarts? What about trade agreements made between friends and community chests placed in the spawn for new players? What about the wars? The long feuds and clash of swords and explosions of TNT? The violence enacted upon another? Snowballing from a simple disagreement over a stolen object or killed pet? I'm sure many of you are familiar with at least one of the situations I've previously described, with Minecraft's popularity being as high as it is. If you're anything like me, you would have played on a Minecraft server before that has ended in disaster, with your house smouldering embers and your beloved companions reduced to ash. Minecraft's multiplayer mode opens us up to this interesting realm of thought, as it allows us to see the outcome of humans left to their own devices, with no government to control them, no laws to obey, and no agreed upon contract on how we should behave. This situation resembles a thought experiment put forward in philosophy, called the state of nature. A thought experiment can be used in philosophy to explain challenging philosophical theories, as it allows us through our imaginations to focus on this particular problem. Now, what if we took what was prevalent in our imaginations and expanded it into code, expanded it into a world formed out of blocks that allows us not only to imagine and think about this experiment, but to experience it in our own square universes? But how can this be done? How can this virtual world emulate our own minds in a way that is conducive to a philosophical thought? What happens when we log onto a game? Are we leaving our physical world behind for the promise of fun in the virtual? Are we truly separate from the society that we reside in, leading us instead to occupy a state of pure nature and greenery that Minecraft supplies us? Well, as put forward by, again, sorry for the bad pronunciation, Huizinga, talks about the idea of the magic circle, wherein as soon as we enter a game, we are stepping out of real life and into a magic circle where the usual consequences of society don't apply. For example, you wouldn't get mad at a friend for killing you in a game the same way you would if they tried to in real life. Therefore, you can act without the consequences of society. You face no real social or legal backlash if you go on a killing spree in GTA. Only the consequences that the game gives you. So as you step into this magic circle by pressing that play button, you are separated from everyday life and the formal rules imposed by society. This leaves you in a lawless state. No government, no laws, no one to tell you what to do, or at least no one who can enforce what you should do. This predicament that the players find themselves in can be categorized as the thought experiment of the state of nature. The state of nature is a state outside of government, where humans are left to run wild. Philosophers debate over what humans running wild looks like, but first let's look how Minecraft is the perfect simulation for this state. Because Minecraft is a sandbox, there are a large number of multiplayer servers hosting different games and worlds. These range from highly organized and governed servers, a famous one being Hypixel, where there are additional rules added to the game. I will not be focusing on these types of servers in this video, as their additional rules mean they aren't in the same state of nature as the normal game is. Additionally, although it can be argued that when you play alone, you are still in the state of nature, single player does not allow us to analyze the dynamics of the gameplay between the players, and will also not be focused on in this video. However, the classic multiplayer survival world is one way to explore the state of nature, as well as so-called anarchy servers, such as 2B2T, which allows players full freedom without any moderation or additional rules. Both multiplayer mode and anarchy servers provide players with full freedom to build, create, as well as destroy, kill, and steal. Just like the lack of laws in the state of nature allows the same freedom. Christopher Watkin, over on the YouTube channel Social Contract Research Network, does a great deep dive into what the state of nature is and how it shapes our modern life and political viewpoints. As Watkin points out and elaborates on in his video, that is definitely worth checking out if you want to know more about the state of nature. We as a humankind are shaped by this idea, as the way we act in the state of nature directly correlates to our views on politics, progress, and who we are as humans. So, what does the gameplay reflect? Well, depending on how you play, can reflect what different philosophers thought would happen in the state of nature. For clarity, I'm going to break it down into 3 main philosophers: Hobbes, Locke, and Rousseau. There are other philosophers who talk about the state of nature, but these are the main 3. I want you to take a moment to think about how you play Minecraft. Do you A. spawn into a populated server and start killing other players to take their supplies, destroying their bases in the process? Do you not bother to build anything because you know it will get destroyed or stolen? Because that's what you do to other players. And the only way you would start fighting is if a higher power, such as an admin, set rules to stop you from killing and griefing each other. As if we say rulers in the anarchy server, we may as well kill each other, blow each other's builds up, and pour lava over everything in sight. Or do you? B. Keep to yourself. Take what you need when you need it, only resorting to violence when somebody threatens you or your belongings. Build up your own houses and farms by taking an unoccupied plot of land, leaving enough resources and space for everybody else. But if you are slighted by having your house destroyed or having a pet killed, you retaliate in a way you think is just. Although sometimes you get annoyed because you don't have the means to retaliate, as the person who did this to you, probably person A, may have better weapons or armor, and you feel like you need another person to serve as a judge to stop these bad things from happening. Or maybe you C. gather food and resources, but feel pity for people who have joined after you and maybe don't have as much, so you help them get started. Don't build a base, but prefer to explore the land and see what nature and the world has to offer, only uniting with other players to face greater forces, such as the Ender Dragon. If you fall into category A, you follow the same ideas as Hobbes. If you fall into category B, you follow the same ideas as Locke, and C. Rousseau. Nasty, brutish, and short is what Hobbes thought the state of nature entailed. He believed that humans are naturally violent, self-centered, and were doomed to live a miserable, short, violent life. They wouldn't create art and philosophy. Why would they? It would be destroyed the next day. This horrible life in the state of nature is why we needed a government to stop us from destroying ourselves and everything around us. Because that's just what humans do. Even if you are not player A, I'm sure you can think about someone who is. A friend or a stranger who logged onto the same server as you and needs to destroy your creations, kill your dog, steal your stuff, for seemingly no reason, other than that they just wanted to. There is no shame in being player A, as according to Hobbes, this is just what humans do. And if you wanted a Minecraft server where your creations are safe, you should have joined one with rules and moderation, and a team making sure people follow said rules. I'm sure this sounds familiar to many of you. Dealing with a player A, it's clear that Minecraft is a game that allows this Hobbesian state of nature, with there being violent items of destruction such as TNT and lava, as well as items that keep your belongings and you safe, such as armor, locked chests, and ender chests. All of this evidences Hobbes' view. So the solution, the only way to stop people pillaging, killing, and destroying, is a social contract. A social contract is an imaginary contract that you don't physically sign, but still agree to, that states that you will follow the laws set out by a government. In Minecraft, the social contract looks like agreeing to the extra rules set out by the admin when you join the server, accepting the consequences of being banned from the server if you break said rules. Because of how horrible the Hobbesian view of the state of nature is, he is able to justify a strong government that can enforce their rules in any way that would prevent the state of nature from returning. Because even a government that punishes their citizens harshly is better than a society where anybody can kill anyone with no consequences. On the other hand, if you fall into category B, you follow the philosophy of Locke. For Locke, the state of nature is less bleak. As for him, humans don't categorically disagree with one another. Instead, believing that God gave us the ability to figure out morality through reason alone. Through thinking and reasoning about our rules of nature, we can conclude moral statements, such as, killing is wrong. And although our survival comes first, we have the reason to figure out what is moral and immoral and act accordingly. However, when somebody threatens our survival, we retaliate, sometimes violently. Additionally, Locke talks about what it means to own something and how, in the state of nature, we can gain property such as houses or Steve's lava chicken stand. For Locke, you own something when you mix your labour with it, as you own yourself, and you own your labour. So when something is unowned, like a plot of land in the state of nature, by cultivating that land, by making a farm or building on it, you make something you own, your labour, with something unowned, meaning you now own it. So, when you build your house in Minecraft, whether that be a simple dirt base or a grand mansion, you now own it, as you have mixed your labour by placing down blocks on the unowned ground. Additionally, when you do things like mine, you also own the items that you mine, as you have used your labour in the action of mining the cave. Once it's your property, Locke thought, you can do whatever you want with it. Like God lords over his universe, destroying and creating it as he whims, so can man lord over his possessions. So you can build and destroy your land as you feel fit. But you shouldn't do it to land owned by another person, because then you threaten their liberty by stopping them from enacting their will on their own property any way they please. So if someone destroys or even builds upon your property, then you are within your rights to retaliate, as they have threatened your liberty and exposed themselves to the consequences. However, this is where the issues begin, as the retaliation may be too severe. I'm sure we have all had a server that has ended with a full-out war from one simple act, such as one diamond being stolen, which has had a domino effect into a full-blown violence. Or the offended party may not be able to retaliate, as the other person has better gear or is just better at the game. This is why we need the social contract, says Locke, as we need a third party who has the power to settle disagreements and hand out punishments to those who threatens people's liberty, life, or possessions. Finally, if you said C was most like your playstyle, you follow the ideas of Rousseau. Rousseau had the nicest view of the state of nature, stating that man is born free, but everywhere he is in chains. This essentially means that man was most free in the state of nature, but the corruption of society leads him to be violent and mistrustful. So in order to be free, we should try and return to the state of nature, as everything pure and natural is good. Additionally, Rousseau thought that pity was the only natural vice, the first thing that humans feel towards each other, making us want to help each other, which could be the reason for why some servers have community chests, where players put starting gear and food for new people joining the server. It may also be why some players protect and help people who are worse at the game than them, by giving them items and killing mobs. As for Rousseau, all morality stems from pity. Rousseau also thought that the only reason we would ever enter into a social contract is because of a greater threat, then we must band together to fight. I'm sure many of you can think of servers where you kept mostly to yourselves until the time it was time to fight the big boss. Rousseau points out, however, that even if you are coming together, you may still only obey yourself, doing anything you wish, which is not conducive to a good team. So the social contract addresses this issue by making sure that everybody gains the equivalent of what they put in. For example, agreeing on splitting loot or XP from the mobs. Watkin also has a good video on Rousseau and the state of nature over on his channel that you should totally check out if you're interested. So, each philosopher puts forward different ideas for what the state of nature is. I find it so fascinating that we can find evidence for all of these views within the way that different people play Minecraft. I can personally think of at least one person who fits into each category. Which is interesting, because even now, when the state of nature is taken out of our thoughts and put into this game format, there is still no clear answer. But isn't that the magic of thought experiments? As Brown points out, many good thought experiments have no clear answer. But why does this matter? So what, you can reflect different philosophical theories and thought experiments into a children's video game? How does this affect the real world? Well, the state of nature is a powerful thought experiment that is relevant in many political arguments today, as we can use the state of nature and the social contract to justify government, a police state, and even justify things like slavery. But also the social contract can be used to tell you what we should value the most, and what is moral and what is immoral. As if you follow Hobbes, then progress is good. Society is slowly getting better as we are getting more and more civilized and further away from the vicious beasts we naturally are. This means that technological advancements are always a good thing and moral, which could justify things such as AI or depleting our natural world in the way of progress and civilization. Whereas if you follow Rousseau, you might believe that we need to strip away our rat race society and return to the peacefulness of nature, that progress is bringing us further into oppression, and that nature and returning to who we are naturally is the answer. And as for Locke, you can use his ideas to keep the government in check and make sure they are fairly judging over who deserves what and giving out fair punishments for each immoral act committed. So it's clear that the state of nature is prevalent in political discussion. But what does Minecraft have to do with this? Yeah, sure, it's neat that a silly little children's game about playing with virtual blocks can reflect the philosophies of old white men who were writing decades ago. But why does that matter? It's just a game. No, it is not just a game. The way you play the supposedly silly little sandbox children's game directly correlates to how you think and carry your life. The state of nature, and by extension the simulation, is not just a cool thought experiment, it's the very basis of our political system. And if you don't care about politics, cool, that doesn't matter, because the state of nature is about more than just politics. It's about humanity itself. Every way you interact with one another, how much you trust people, whether you think people are naturally good or evil, all stems from the state of nature, and by extension, how you play Minecraft. The way we exist and see the world can be explained by the way we gather resources and build our houses, kill other players, destroy our worlds, leave our block paradise burning in a fiery inferno. It's not just a game, because this behaviour, when there's no rules, shows your humanity, shows who you really are without the threat of punishment. Do you destroy everything that is built? Every art piece? Every intricate design and passion project? Or do you build despite the looming fear growing in your stomach that every time you log back onto the game you might be greeted by your project and effort reduced to nothing but a steaming pile of ash? It's not just a game. It's reflected in every law, every action, every child born, every person taking their last breath. So take a step back and think about how you play Minecraft. And then think about how you view humanity, how you carry yourself, how you trust and love, how you build and destroy, how you build sandcastles upon the sand of the beach only to have the sea wave it away the next day. Yes, it's a game about mining and crafting, about being a man made of blocks, exploring a world made of squares. But look to the water, running in a square pattern down the hill, and see if you can catch a glimpse of your reflection in it. A piece of humanity. staring back at you.